Hello everyone, Rana here. So I wanted to make a video today discussing the importance of surrender not being a passive state. So what does that mean, right? So we hear a lot about the overall importance of surrender on the spiritual journey. And of course that is incredibly important and something that we should really follow and live by, right? Just the overall importance of surrendering to all the pain and all the suffering that we might be experiencing, whether that's through a dark night of the soul or what have you. And that's amazing and it's incredible. But it's important to understand what exactly it means to surrender and what exactly happens after we surrender. So the idea of surrender not being a passive state means that once we achieve this place of being able to surrender, then it doesn't necessarily mean that all we can do or should do is just kind of sit around passively and not take action. Because it is important that we do take some kind of action and we do take some kind of initiation to improve our lives on this path, right? And that we don't just kind of sit around in a passive state thinking that all we can do or should do is essentially nothing and the kind of divine will just operate through us or whatever. Well, that's not actually the reality and that's not how it should be. So let's take the example of being stuck in the mud, for instance. So let's say you're walking and you realize that you've literally become stuck in the mud. Let's say you're knee high in mud. Let's say you have mud up to your knees and you look down and you realize like, oh, I'm stuck in mud. What do I do now? Do I just surrender and let it happen and not take any action? No, you wouldn't do that. You first would accept that that's where you are, right? Without attaching any resistance to it. It's really important that you don't actually attach any resistance to that event or that situation because that's going to create further suffering in your life. Resignation is not surrender. You don't need to accept something that is undesirable or unpleasant. So again, you can still surrender to the fact that you're stuck in the mud without it being a kind of passive state. So you look down and from there you take action from a place that is now more conscious, now that you have this different perspective, this shift in perspective. And that action that you do now will be more aligned with that kind of inner essence of who you truly are. And in other words, you won't have any kind of negative or angry feelings or emotions towards being stuck in the mud and how am I going to get out of the mud, and again developing all these kind of mental constructs and thoughts and opinions on how unhappy you are that you are stuck in the mud. You also don't need to pretend that there is not anything wrong with being stuck in the mud. It's just the kind of isness of the situation, if that makes sense. You can still, again, accept and surrender that this event just happened without attaching any mental labels and narratives on something that is just, it just is what it is. It's a kind of neutral event and situation, but the problem is that our ego mind tries to turn something into so much more than it really is, when the fact of the matter is that an event just happened, and now from a conscious perspective, you can figure out how to remove yourself from the situation and change that circumstance in your life. So again, the key is to not place any mental labels on this event. And instead, we can and should take action to initiate that kind of change that we want to see occur. So surrender is this kind of inner event that needs to occur, and it definitely does not mean that we can't take action in the external world to initiate change. And I'm telling you, once you kind of begin to operate like this and behave this way towards your situations and your circumstances, it will change the whole game for you, I promise. Because again, I feel like it's very easy once we realize that You know, we shouldn't be resisting things to, again, just not do anything about anything. But again, we should be taking conscious, aligned action. That is really the key point here. Because really, if we don't take any kind of spiritually aligned action, we'll just be sitting around and we won't actually be able to make any kind of progress on the spiritual path. We won't be able to develop ourselves and become more conscious individuals if we are, again, just in that passive state of non-doing. We actually want to be doing physically, but in a way that is very conscious and aligned with our inner and our outer purpose. And really, another key point here is that you aren't fighting the now, which is very important because we always want to be present. So I hope this video was somewhat helpful for you. It was really important for me to understand this concept myself. That's it for today's video. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Reach out if you need any kind of support, and we will talk soon. Bye.